cemetery right there. Now I really am going to tell a very short version of this because I want to tell the two stories that I haven't told up here in I don't know how long, 5, 6, 10 years maybe. Okay.
I'm not even. I'm 8.
So I haven't told this story, not this one I haven't. I'll just tell you this one because y'all may want to spend some. You may want to go out there tonight, tomorrow, during the day, whatever. There's a little girl buried out here.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to pick flowers
and put on the grave. All right. You know the story then, right?
Well, she's going to put them on the grave.
Not me.
No, she is.
Oh, okay. Oh, she will. She'll play with you. You know the story? That's a true.
I didn't tell her the story. I just told her that there was a kid there that would play
It's
with
true. What is a tragedy, really? Her mother died in childbirth. The father, after the girl got 3 or 4 or 5 years old, I don't know, he got killed. A plow just nicked him. And the man who was her godfather, who'd come into this area maybe a decade earlier, well-known doctor, lived down what's now Pineville. What was that called? May have already been Pineville then. Not much town there. Not much anywhere up here in the county then. But he was godfather, ended up adopting her because the guy died from that. He shouldn't have probably, but he did for some reason. But the story is that she came down here from up in the northern part of the state because her family died and had a cousin down here, was living with him, but she brought $200 dowry. Dowry was a common thing in those days. A lot of women had a dowry with them when they got married, which meant they brought value other than themselves into that new union, or however they thought of it. But no, I mean, people down here knew about dowries, but no one had any money, so you didn't have any money. I can bring you a chicken, or whatever, but anyway, but she had real, $200 is real money then. I don't know what that'd be today, 10,000 bucks or something.
Probably.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of money.
But anyway, he ended up with that money, ended up with the farm they lived on up here. But within 6 months, he was gone. Because she died. She died and they couldn't save her, and she's buried right out there. But she had spent years after her mother died, and even after her father died, picking wildflowers and playing with the local kids and putting them on the grave out there. She still does, even now. People who are here in the park. First time I knew of it still going on, I was here 30 years ago, I guess. And it was right here. There was a little picket fence around. You remember that rail fence that was around here? Anyway, I had a little park uniform on. Here comes a lady and 2 kids, a girl about your age and a boy who was maybe a year or 2 younger. They come running, and she was going, Ranger, Ranger, help, you got to help us. I think a grave caved in, which was common in those days. Because you don't have to have a vault now. There's a lot you can just dig a hole in the ground, jump in it if you're dead. Well, you couldn't jump in it if you're dead, I guess. That'd be tough to do. Somebody could like roll you over in it. You can stay there. There's no law against that. But now somebody else told me that makes your property a cemetery, and part of it can't be taxed now. That's a pretty good way in that. But anyway, she's still out there. She still picks wildflowers. She loves to play with kids, and she likes to swing. Sometimes those swings, I've seen the swings move, but sometimes those swings move. And they move like when you ever see kids, maybe you've done it yourself, don't. Swinging so hard they want to go clear up and around the pole and back down. I remember trying that. Never could do it, but I'd get up till it was scary.
Yeah.
Still happens sometimes out there. That's the ghost story I won't tell. You kind of know that story, and that's the most often seen ghost here. Seen, heard, or you see some effect from it like the swings move. But here's a story I want to tell now. I'm going to tell 2 of them because they're connected. In the 70s, 72, 73, 74, 75, I'd have to look up the date on that, the notes I have. I think I was in high school, but maybe I was in the first year of college. I don't know. And I graduated from high school in 73. Could have been, I could drive, so I know it was during my junior year at the very earliest. That's when I got a car. When I got my license. Dad had a car. But anyway, here's that story. We would go out to have y'all seen the Pioneer Farm yet?
Not yet.
You're going to go though,
Tomorrow.
right? When you see the Pioneer Farm, which is a neat place. Back then, it had spent 90 years being a 2 or 3 story, almost mansion for this area, house, that had been all but abandoned. Well, it was now belongs to the park, belongs to the state of West Virginia. Smoky. her granddad, is the superintendent. And they were going to use it's a dirt road. That was a dirt road. There's no road here again like that. Campground's not here. This is like a wilderness area of the park almost then. But they're going to go out and they had plans to use that as a park building, the whole thing. But vandals would come in the back way, which you could still go that way if you really wanted to. The road's not in real good shape, and they got a big trench dug on the park boundary, but you could still go that way and come out down below Mullins, between Mullins and Pineville, in fact, Ibn. Anyway, when they decided to look and see what they could do with it, they decided the house had been damaged too much. It was run too far to run down. They're going to tear it down. While they were tearing it down, they stopped, called Mr. Harsh to come out and look what they had found. And amongst all that big house being torn down, there was a two-room, a bottom room and a top room, and a little stairway thing that went up to it. The original log cabin those people had built now 100 years ago or more. That date's knowable. I just don't know it off the top of my head. I haven't told this story in a long time. Pioneer Farm was built. Well, for the first 3 or 4 years, maybe 5, it was out there, but we didn't do anything. Nobody lived in it. We didn't do much with it. And Dora Lewis, who was a science teacher at Mullins Junior High, and the park naturalist here, one of the very first park naturalists anywhere, not the first, wasn't even the first here. She was the second naturalist here. Edsel Ray Lafferty was the first, who was a brilliant, brilliant plant man. But he wasn't real friendly and happy, and he didn't, he'd do camp stories. Okay, here's a story, but he was brilliant. But he only did it 1 year. He did something else after that. Dora became the naturalist, legendary person. All of us who had her as a teacher or who remember from out here, I still think so fondly of her. And she's been gone 30 years, I guess. Anyway, Dora would read ghost stories, mainly. She'd tell one or two, but she'd mainly read them. And she mainly read them from a book called The Telltale Lilac Bush by Ruth Ann Music. And believe it or not, I got a text today from a girl who grew up in Pineville, graduated from Pineville, same year I graduated from Mullins. And she asked me, she said, Bugs, she'd give a kid's a name, and maybe Richard, whatever the name was. I don't know if that's her husband or if that's her son. I don't know, because I hadn't been connected to him for 30 years, I guess. I was trying to tell him the connection. She'd seen the post about this ghost story tonight and tomorrow night. I was trying to tell him the story about Ruth Ann Music and your connection to her. Mm-hmm. You helped her write a book, right? And I said, I wish. No, I didn't say that, but I wrote back, no, but we do have a connection to the Twin Falls, and I do. Mm-hmm. And I said, I was a lifeguard and assistant naturalist to Dora Lewis that year. And we did, and I'm going to tell this story scarier, but I got to set it, because I was intimately involved in this. This thing is as real as if I couldn't build a fire today. As real as that.
As real as that.
Yes, as real as that. As real as Luna, dog. No, stay there. Call her name if she wants to come up to you. Anyway,
Luna.
Where was I? Gray hair, it's getting old.
The relation
Oh.
to the teacher.
Dora
Yeah.
Lewis. So we would tell stories, read them down there. One time, in fact, she had a bunch of people there, and somebody was getting hung in the ghost story. Dora didn't mind making them up. If I tell a story, and if I ever tell an untrue story, like a Stephen King story, short story, I will immediately, when I finish, tell you that. Now that's fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Every story I tell is told by those who experienced it as true, or I don't tell it. I'm not saying they're true, but they're told as true by those who went through it. And I went through this one. I'm telling you, this happened.
Told is true.
Yeah. So we're down there, because she wanted me to help her. And I did, and I want to set the scene of that. Here's that bottom room. It's got 2 doors to get in and out, and a 3rd door that goes up the steps to upstairs. There's a great big giant chimney. The same chimney's upstairs, but there's a fireplace built into the same chimney, 2 of them. I don't know how that worked without smoking out the top, but I've seen that in other buildings.
Yeah.
Here's how we set it up. Dora would have a log cut round. She'd put the ghost story book and a large candle on it. Then she'd put a large candle on the table. She'd have enough light to read by. And everybody else sat and benches that were around the walls of that. And we'd read stories, and those candles would flicker, and inside there, and she made a point of it. I'd go up, and you had these things built. They still build like that, like this, that a board slides down in. So from outside, you can't get in unless you break that board. But from inside, you just got to lift the board. So I'd lock them, and I'd say, "Okay, Miss Lewis, we're locked in now." There was probably 30, 40 people there that night. It was crowded for that room, and they all went, "Ooh." So here's what happened. But I'm going to go back to tell you why we're in that position now. We did that over and over, and always we read. She did usually. Sometimes I'd read the same story. We'd read The Telltale Lilac Bush and Other Stories by Ruth Ann Hughes. Now, Ruth Ann heard that we were doing that. She heard good feedback. She wanted to come down and experience it. So here is The Telltale Lilac Bush that she wrote. It's only a couple pages in it. 100-story book by Ruth Ann Hughes. It's a storyteller's perfect story, because you don't have all these things you got to worry about. Did I get that held exactly right? Did I forget? Driving a bit fast in the campground. And he works here. Anyway. Here's The Telltale Lilac Bush. You ready? By Ruth Ann Hughes. It was up in north central West Virginia. I'm going to tell you what the county is, but it's mentioned in the book. You'll know exactly what it is.
I think it was Upshur.
You ever hear of a hog cried in Upshur, that ghost story?
No, I haven't.
I might tell that tonight. We'll see if I will run out of time. Here it goes. You ready? This will scare you. You ready? This really will scare you. I promise it will. Now, I don't want you to run off and hide and get lost in the woods if you get too scared, okay?
No.
Yeah, just go down there and she'll help you. You can pick wildflowers with her. Here's the story of the Telltale Lilac Bush. Anyway, there was this mean old guy lived around close to this town, but out in the country on an old mountain farm. It was a rough farm, hard to work. Now, he wouldn't come into town maybe once every 2 months. And they'd buy up stuff like you wouldn't believe. But this old mean guy that everybody talked trash about, and he did get harassed some because he was so mean. What are you gonna do? You know, your kid's got to. He's gonna treat us that way. We'll show him, kind of thing. But there was one thing he had. No one could ever figure it out. Young, intelligent, young women would fall for him. It's like, oh, you know, like what is wrong with you? But they would. He had some power. I don't know what it was. He did. And at least 2 women had married him, moved up on his farm, and later disappeared. Gone. Well, suddenly one of the best girls in the county, everybody knew she was going to be somebody in life. She's going to make it in this world. She was smart, she was good, she was kind, she was beautiful, they said. And it was like, oh, the perfect human. And she fell for him too. And her mother said, you will not ever even speak to him when he comes into town. And she'd try to make sure the daughter wasn't around, but you never knew when the guy was coming. So he come into town once, and there his mother walked around and saw her daughter talking to him. And her daughter had that look at them. Think of an old 50s movie when the women were all going, oh, perfect man. You know, that is an old wives' tale, I promise. But anyway, she was falling for this guy, and the mother was mad, and she went straight to him. She goes, let me tell you something. You don't ever talk to my daughter again, or I'll put you in the ground. You know what that means? She threatened to kill him, is what she did. It goes on and on. Eventually, however, she fell for him. She didn't care what her mom and dad said, or her sisters, or all of her friends. She decided she was going to run off and get married to him, and she did. The 3rd woman in a row now has moved up there. Now, she never hardly came to town. He came maybe once every 2 months. She'd come in with him, and the mother would, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is everything good? Oh, please tell me. What's going on? You can come home. You can still come back. Please, please. But the girl said, no, it's okay. But you could tell her smile was getting less. Something was really bothering the daughter. Over a year and a half or so, it goes on. And then one day he comes in by himself. And the mother runs up. She says, "Where is she? Where's my daughter? What have you done to her?" And he said, "I haven't done anything to her. She was feeling bad and stayed home." Well, the mother knew better. Couldn't be true, because she could tell that eventually the only time the daughter was at all happy, it seemed, is when she would come into town and could see people other than this man. So, but what can she do? He told her, "Don't you come to the house. I'll have you arrested." "I will." Well, 2 months later, he comes again, and she's still not there. She goes, "Where is she? She can't still be sick. Where's my daughter? What have you done to her?" He said, "I haven't done anything to her. She ran off. Who knows? I heard she was over in another county and found some guy she fell for. I don't know why she left, but she's gone." Well, the mother, and he said, "And don't you come to the farm. You just don't do it." So he gets his stuff and he heads back to the farm. She immediately goes to see the sheriff who lived in that town. And the sheriff said, "Well, maybe what he said's true. I haven't heard anything, but I tell you what I'll do. Don't talk about it. But I'll wait, give him a while to get home, or maybe wait a day or two, and I'll go up to the farm and look around." See, now this story's only 2 pages, but 90% of the detail just isn't there. That's great, see. But I always tell exactly the same because I know how it went. So the sheriff decides he's going to go check. He eases up the hill. Think of a farm here, with a farmhouse and a barn and other things, surrounded by the woods. And he eases through the woods and he's looking. And he can hear somebody in the barn working. He's thinking, that must be the farmer. But if I ease around this way and keep the house between me and the barn, as long as I can hear him working in there, he can't see me. I can ease right up to the house and see. Maybe she's sitting on the porch and he just don't let her come to town anymore. I don't know what's going on, but I'll check. So he eases up through there and he looks around. He's looking carefully. He's looking, the guy's still working. He looks in the first window. He's up on the porch. He goes around to the back. And at the back window, there's a big lilac bush growing. Beautiful flowers on it. They're lilac in color. And he's looking, and suddenly he notices he doesn't hear the farmer working in the barn anymore. He knows that guy's got guns. He's got a shotgun. He even got an 8-gauge, and that's a real shotgun. It might kill his shoulder, but he'd kill the sheriff too for sure. So the sheriff makes sure that he's got his own gun just in case he has to. And he goes, what am I going to do? And the farmer steps around the corner and says, "Sheriff, what are you doing on my property? I told you and everybody not to come up here. You got no business to be here. Have you seen her?" And he said, "No, I haven't. I have to admit, I haven't seen her at all, and I've looked most everywhere. Can I go in your house and look?" And he said, "No, of course you can't go in my house. Now get off the property now." Well, about that time, that lilac bush, it's just a beautiful bush growing, started going boom, boom, and the limbs are shaking violently and hitting the house. Wham, wham, sounds like it's going to break that window out. And the sheriff went, "Good Lord, there's no wind blowing. What's going on?" You know, that's what he asked himself. You can feel the wind, which direction it's coming. Did you know that? Wet your finger. The wind's coming this way. This side gets cold. The wind's coming that way. It's heading that way. Of course, you can kind of tell that anyway. Anyway, that works. So he's going, but still this lilac bush is just banging and jerking, about to knock the wind out. And the farmer, he looks at the sheriff and he looks at that bush, and instead of getting angry and yelling at the sheriff, he goes, phew, he just takes off running. Well, the sheriff takes off after him. The guy's running like he's a track athlete. The sheriff can't catch him. And then it dawns on him, what am I chasing him for? He's running off his own farm. Now I can go back and look anywhere I want. This is it, I've got it. So he looks, he searches, he can't find anything. He doesn't see anything about the girl. He doesn't know where the young lady is. He's lost. What in the world's wrong with that farmer? Why'd he run like that? Boom, 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 boom. The lilac bush is banging on the house again. So he comes around the back of the house again, and he looks at it, and it's shaking like there's a tornado on it. And the roots are even starting to whip up, and the ground's breaking. And he looks down and says, he's about to run himself. What in the world is going on? And he looks down, and the roots have ripped up out of the ground, and there's something white there. And he looks, and he goes, oh, please, no. And the lilac bush gets calm. And he gets down, and he parts the ground. And there's the hand. Looks like a young woman's hand. And that lilac root is coming right up through her hand. And he does it all out, and there she is. Obviously, the farmer had killed her, buried her in the back, and that lilac bush had grown right up out of her hand. And the lilac told the truth of what happened to her. But they never found him again. They never could find him and arrest him or try him. But they at least got to take her home and get her and bury her. Ruth Ann Music wrote that story, or a version of it, in her book, The Telltale Lilac Bush. It's actually the name of the whole book. It's also one story of 100 in the book.